Qur'an Chapter 41, Surah Fussilat, by Sayyid Qutb. Translation by Muhammad Al-Amrani. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Ha-Mim, a revelation from the most gracious, the most merciful, a book whose verses have been clearly spelled out as a Qur'an in eloquent Arabic for people of understanding, bringing glad tidings and a warning. Yet, most of them turn away, and so they do not hear. And they say, "Our hearts are veiled from what you call us to, and in our ears is deafness, and between us and you is a barrier. So act as you will, we are indeed acting as we will. Say, I am but a man like you. It has been revealed to me that your God is but one God. So turn straight towards him and seek his forgiveness. And woe unto those who ascribe partners to him, those who do not give the purifying alms, and who deny the life to come. Indeed, those who believe and do righteous deeds will have a reward unending. Say, you disbelieve in the one who created the earth in 2 days, and you set up equals to him? That is the sustainer of all worlds. And he placed firm mountains upon it, towering above its surface, and he blessed it and apportioned its sustenance within it in 4 days, equal for all those who seek its provisions. Then he directed himself to the heaven, while it was but smoke, and he said to it and to the earth, Come willingly or unwillingly. They both said, We come willingly. So he completed them as 7 heavens in 2 days, and revealed in every heaven its command. And we adorn the nearest heaven with lamps of light and as a protection. That is the decree of the Almighty, the All-Knowing. But if they turn away, then say, I have warned you of a thunderbolt like the thunderbolt that struck Ad and Thamud. When the messengers came to them from before them and behind them, saying, Worship none but God, they said, Had our sustainer willed, he would have sent down angels. So indeed we disbelieve in that with which you have been sent. As for Ad, they were arrogant upon the earth without right, and said, Who is greater than us in strength? Did they not see that God who created them is greater than them in strength? But they continued to reject our signs. So we unleashed against them a furious wind in days of misfortune, that we might make them taste the punishment of humiliation in this worldly life. But the punishment of the hereafter will be far more humiliating, and they will not be helped. And as for Thamud, we guided them, but they preferred blindness over guidance. So the thunderbolt of humiliating punishment seized them for what they used to earn, and we saved those who believed and were conscious of us. And warn of the day when the enemies of God will be gathered to the fire, while they are driven forth in ranks, until when they come to it, their hearing, their sight, and their skins will testify against them for what they used to do. And they will say to their skins, Why do you testify against us? They will reply, God, who makes all things speak, has made us speak. He is the one who created you the first time, and to him you are now returned. And you did not conceal yourselves in the world, lest your hearing or your sight or your skin should testify against you, but you assumed that God did not know much of what you were doing. And that assumption of yours about your sustainer has brought you to ruin, and so you have become among the losers. And if they endure patiently, the fire will still be their abode. And if they seek to appease God, they will not be allowed to appease him. And we assigned to them companions of evil, who made attractive to them what was before them and what was behind them, and the word of punishment became due upon them, along with the nations who had passed before them of jinn and men. Indeed, they were losers. And those who disbelieve say, Do not listen to this Qur'an, and talk noisily during its recitation, so that you may overcome it. But we will surely make those who disbelieve taste a severe punishment, and we will surely requite them for the worst of what they used to do. That is the recompense of the enemies of God, the fire. For them, therein will be their eternal home, as a recompense for their persistent rejection of our signs. And those who disbelieve will say, Our sustainer, show us those who misled us of the jinn and men, so that we may place them under our feet, that they may be among the lowest. Indeed, those who have said, Our sustainer is God, and then remained steadfast, upon them the angels will descend, saying, Do not fear nor grieve, but rejoice in the paradise that you were promised. We are your allies in this worldly life and in the hereafter, and therein you will have whatever your souls desire. and therein you will have whatever you ask for, as hospitality from the most forgiving, the most merciful. And who is better in speech than one who invites to God, works righteousness, and says, "Indeed, I am of the Muslims," but good and evil are not equal. Repel evil with that which is best, and you will see that the one between whom and you there was enmity will become as though he were a devoted friend. But none is granted this except those who are patient, and none is granted it except one who has been given a great portion of goodness. And if an evil suggestion comes to you from Satan, then seek refuge in God. Indeed, he is the all-hearing, the all-knowing. Qur'an 41, 1:36. The issue of faith with its essential truths is the central theme addressed in this surah. The oneness of divinity, the reality of the afterlife, and the revelation of the divine message. Added to these are the methodology of calling others to God and the character of the one who calls. Everything in this surah revolves around the explanation of these truths, the evidence supporting them, and the presentation of God's signs in the realms of the human soul and the vast horizons of the universe. It warns against denying these truths, reminds us of the fate of those who rejected them in previous generations, and vividly depicts the scenes that await the deniers on the day of resurrection. It also makes clear that those who reject these truths, whether among humans or jinn, are the only ones who refuse to surrender to God alone. In contrast, the heavens and the earth, the sun and the moon, and the angels, all of them bow to God in humility, submitting and surrendering themselves to Him. As for the truth of divine oneness, it is presented at the very beginning of the surah, where it is said, "Say, I am but a human being like you. It has been revealed to me that your God is but one God. Stand firm, then, on the straight path towards Him and seek His forgiveness. Woe unto those who associate partners with Him." And it is said, "Say, do you indeed deny Him who created the earth in 2 days and set up equals to Him? That is the sustainer of all worlds." Moreover, the story of the peoples of Ad and Thamud recounts how their messengers conveyed this very truth to them, saying, "Do not worship any but God." In the middle of the surah we find the injunction, "Do not bow down to the sun or the moon, but bow down before God who created them, if it is Him alone that you worship." And towards the end of the surah, this same truth is echoed, and on that day He will call out to them, "Where are my alleged partners?" They will say, "We declare before you that none of us bears witness to them." As for the matter of the afterlife, the surah warns those who deny it, saying, "Woe to those who associate partners with God, who do not give the poor due alms, and who disbelieve in the hereafter." It concludes with the solemn reminder, "Behold, they are in doubt about the meeting with their sustainer. Behold, truly He encompasses all things." The topic of the afterlife is also addressed through vivid scenes of the resurrection, presenting what will unfold on that day in a manner that underscores its inevitability. Indeed, this approach brings the reality of the afterlife even closer to the human heart and mind. Regarding the matter of revelation, this theme is elaborated upon extensively to the extent that it could be said to be the principal subject of the surah. It opens with these words, "Hamim," a revelation from the most merciful, the compassionate. A book whose verses have been expounded in detail as an Arabic Qur'an for people who understand, bearing glad tidings and a warning. Yet most of them turn away, and so they do not hear, and they say, "Our hearts are veiled against that to which you call us, and in our ears is deafness, and between us and you is a barrier, so act as you will. For we, too, are acting. Say, I am but a human being like you. It has been revealed to me." In the middle of the surah, the reaction of the disbelievers to the Qur'an is recounted. "And those who disbelieve say, 'Do not listen to this Qur'an and drown it out with noise so that you may prevail.'" The surah provides extensive details about their response and refutes their claims. Truly, those who reject the reminder when it comes to them are in the wrong. Yet it is indeed a mighty book. Falsehood cannot approach it from before it or behind it. It is a revelation from one who is wise, praiseworthy. Nothing is said to you, O Prophet, except what was said to the messengers before you. Truly, your sustainer is full of forgiveness, yet he is also severe in retribution. And if we had made it a Qur'an in a foreign tongue, they would surely have said, why are its verses not explained in detail? Is it a foreign tongue and an Arab prophet? Say, it is guidance and healing for those who believe. But as for those who do not believe, there is deafness in their ears, and it is blindness for them. They are as if being called from a distant place. As for the method of calling others to God and the character of the caller, this is beautifully expressed in the verse. And who is better in speech than one who calls to God and acts righteously and says, indeed, I am of those who have surrendered themselves to him. And it is said, nor can goodness and evil ever be equal. Repel evil with what is better. And behold, the one between you and whom there was enmity will become as though he were your closest friend. But none attains this except those who are patient, and none attains it except those who are blessed with a great portion of virtue. And if a prompting from Satan should incite you to act otherwise, then seek refuge with God. Truly, he is the all-hearing, the all-knowing. These themes are presented in a rich tapestry of deeply moving elements. They are displayed across the vast canvas of the cosmos, filled with awe-inspiring signs. They are revealed within the profound depths of the human soul, laid bare for reflection. They are illustrated through the fateful ends of nations long past. And finally, they are portrayed in the dramatic and soul-stirring scenes of the day of resurrection, some of which are so unique in their imagery and settings that they evoke profound astonishment. Among the cosmic scenes depicted in this surah is the account of the earth's and the heavens' creation, described in stirring detail. Say, do you indeed deny him who created the earth in 2 days and set up equals to him? That is the sustainer of all worlds. And he placed firm mountains on its surface, blessed it, and determined therein its sustenance in 4 days, equal for all who ask. Then he turned to the heavens, which were but smoke, and said to them and to the earth, come willingly or unwillingly. They said, we come willingly. So he completed them as 7 heavens in 2 days, and revealed in each heaven its laws. And we adorned the lowest heaven with lamps and made it secure. Such is the decree of the Almighty, the All-Knowing. Also among these signs are the cycles of night and day, the sun and the moon, the worship and humility of the angels, the earth's submission in worship and its vibrant response to life. And among his signs are the night and the day and the sun and the moon. Do not bow down to the sun or the moon, but bow down before God who created them, if it is him alone that you worship. But if they grow arrogant, know that those who are near your sustainer glorify him night and day, and they never grow weary. And among his signs is that you see the earth humbled and barren, but when we send down water upon it, it stirs and swells. Indeed, he who gives it life is the one who will raise the dead. Verily, he has power over all things. As for the human soul, this surah unveils its reality, laying it bare before its possessors. Man never tires of seeking good, yet if harm touches him, he is full of despair, utterly despondent. And if we grant him a taste of mercy from us, after hardship has befallen him, he will surely say, this is mine, and I do not think the hour will ever come. But even if I should be returned to my sustainer, I will surely find with him something even better. Yet we shall certainly inform the disbelievers about what they have done, and we shall surely make them taste a severe punishment. And when we bestow favour upon a human being, he turns away and distances himself. But when evil touches him, he is full of prolonged supplication. As for the fate of past generations, the surah vividly portrays the destruction of Ad and Thamud. As for Ad, they behaved arrogantly in the land without right and said, who is mightier than us in strength? Did they not see that God, who created them, is mightier than they in strength? Yet they continued to reject our signs. So we sent against them a howling, icy wind during days of misfortune, so that we might make them taste the punishment of disgrace in the life of this world. But the punishment of the hereafter will be even more disgraceful, and they will not be helped. And as for Thamud, we guided them, but they preferred blindness over guidance. So the thunderbolt of humiliating punishment seized them because of what they earned. And we saved those who believed and were mindful of God. Among the powerful scenes of the resurrection in this surah is this vivid depiction. And on the day when the enemies of God will be gathered to the fire, they will be driven in ranks. Until, when they reach it, their hearing, their sight, and their very skins will bear witness against them for what they used to do. And they will say to their skins, "Why do you testify against us?" They will say, "God, who makes all things speak, has made us speak. He created you the first time, and to him you are now returned." Another striking scene is that of the deceived expressing their rage at their deceivers, and those who disbelieved will say, "Our sustainer, show us those who led us astray from among the jinn and humans, so that we may trample them under our feet, and they may be among the lowest of the low." Thus, the great truths of faith are presented in this surah through a vast array of deeply moving and stirring elements. This array of diverse influences paints the atmosphere of the surah, defines its character, and casts its shadows. From the opening to the conclusion, the heart is drawn into a series of impressions and rhythms that take it on a journey through the vast dominion of the heavens and the earth, into the depths of the human soul, across the ruins of human civilizations, and into the realm of the hereafter. These rhythms strike deeply upon the chords of the heart, producing a range of profound effects. The surah's narrative flows seamlessly through two interconnected arcs. The first arc begins with verses about the revelation of the book, its nature, and the response of the disbelievers to it. It is followed by the story of the creation of the heavens and the earth, the account of Ad and Thamud, and the depiction of the disbelievers on the day of resurrection, as their hearing, sight, and skins testify against them. From here, the narrative returns to describe their misguidance in this world, mentioning how God assigned to them companions of evil from among the jinn and humans. They adorn for them what lies before them and what lies behind them. An example of this is their saying, "Do not listen to this Qur'an, but drown it in frivolous talk so that you may prevail." And then their stance on the day of resurrection, seething with anger against those who deceived them, their companions among the jinn and humankind. On the other hand, there stand those who said, "Our sustainer is God," and then remained steadfast. Upon them descend the angels, not the evil companions, offering them tranquility, glad tidings, and declaring their companionship to them in both this world and the hereafter. Following this comes what is mentioned about the call of the caller and the one who calls. And thus ends this section. The next section speaks of the signs of God, the night and the day, the sun and the moon, the worshipful angels, the submissive earth, and life as it stirs and swells after death. Following this, it addresses those who deviate concerning the signs of God and his book. Here the discussion turns to this book and includes a mention of the book of Moses and the disputes of his people concerning it, entrusting their matter to God until the appointed time. Then comes a reference to the hour, the exclusivity of God's knowledge regarding it, and his knowledge of what is hidden within the sheaths of fruits and the wombs of mothers. A scene is presented of the disbelievers as they are questioned about their alleged partners. This is followed by a discourse on the human soul, stripped of all veils. Despite mankind's intense concern for his own self, he fails to safeguard it, denying and disbelieving without regard for the destruction and torment that inevitably follow such rejection. The surah concludes with God's promise to reveal his signs within themselves and throughout the horizons, until it becomes clear to them that this is the truth. We shall show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves, until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth. Is it not sufficient that your sustainer is witness to all things? Behold, they are in doubt about the meeting with their sustainer. Truly, he encompasses all things. Thus the surah ends with this final cadence. And now we begin the elaboration, Ha-Mim, a revelation from the most gracious, the most merciful, a book whose verses are explained in detail in an Arabic Qur'an for people who know, bearing glad tidings and warnings. Yet most of them turn away so they do not listen. And they say, "Our hearts are veiled from what you call us to, and in our ears is deafness, and there is a barrier between us and you. So act as you will, indeed we are acting as we will. Say, I am but a human being like you, to whom it has been revealed that your God is one God. So turn to him and seek his forgiveness. Woe to those who associate others with him, those who do not give the zakah, and who disbelieve in the hereafter. Indeed, those who believe and do righteous deeds, for them is a reward uninterrupted. The opening with the disjointed letters such as ha, mim, has already been discussed in various surahs. The repetition of this phrase aligns with the Qur'an's method of reiterating truths that touch the human heart, for the nature of the human heart requires repeated reminders. It forgets when time grows long, and it needs to have any deeply felt truths reinforced through varied approaches. The Quran addresses this heart according to its innate characteristics and potential, as is known by the creator of the heart and its disposer as he wills. A revelation from the most gracious, the most merciful, it is as though Ha-Mim were the name of the surah, or a designation for the Quran, crafted from the very letters that form its words. A revelation from the most gracious, the most merciful, is the predicate of this opening phrase. The mention of the most gracious, the most merciful, in connection with the revelation of the book, points to the overarching quality of this revelation mercy. There is no doubt that the revelation of this book is indeed a mercy for all beings, a mercy for those who believe in it and follow its guidance, and a mercy even for those who do not, extending beyond humankind to all living things. For it establishes a way of life and outlines a path that fosters goodness for all. It has affected human existence, perceptions, and course of history, not just for the believers, but universally and enduringly since its advent. Those who study human history with fairness and precision, examining it through a holistic lens that encompasses all aspects of human activity, recognize this truth and are assured of it. Many among them have documented and openly acknowledged this fact. A book whose verses are explained in detail in an Arabic Quran for people who know. The meticulous detailing of its verses with regard to its purposes and objectives, the diversity of human dispositions and intellects, the variety of environments and eras, and the differing psychological states and their needs, is a distinctive feature of this book. Its verses have been explained with precision, tailored to these considerations and distinctions. It is laid out as an Arabic Quran for people who know, for those who possess the readiness for understanding, knowledge, and discernment. This Quran fulfills its purpose as a bearer of glad tidings and warnings. It brings glad tidings to those who believe and act righteously, while warning those who deny the truth and commit evil. It clarifies the causes for both the glad tidings and the warnings in its eloquent and clear Arabic, addressing a people whose language is Arabic. Yet, despite this clarity, most of them turn away so they do not listen. They turned away and refused to listen, actively avoiding exposing their hearts to the overpowering influence of this Quran. They would even urge the masses not to hear it, as evidenced in their statement, "Do not listen to this Quran and drown it in frivolous talk so that you may prevail." Sometimes they would listen, but as though they did not hear, resisting the Quran's effect on their souls, making themselves like the deaf who cannot hear. And they said, "Our hearts are veiled from what you call us to, and in our ears is deafness, and there is a barrier between us and you, so act as you will. Indeed, we are acting as we will." They said this out of sheer obstinacy, attempting to discourage the messenger, peace be upon him, from continuing his call. For they felt deep within the impact of his words on their hearts, while deliberately choosing not to believe. They claimed that their hearts were covered, preventing his words from reaching them, that their ears were deaf, unable to hear his call, and that a barrier separated them from him, cutting off all connection. So they dismissed him, saying, "Do as you will, for we too are acting as we will." Or perhaps they meant it as a defiant statement of indifference to his words, actions, warnings, or threats, saying, "Continue on your path, for we will continue on ours. We do not heed you. Do what you will, and bring forth the punishment you threaten us with, for we are unafraid." This is but one example of what the first bearer of this message, peace be upon him, had to endure. Yet he continued on his path, calling and calling without ceasing, undeterred by their attempts to discourage him. He neither despaired of their rejection nor grew impatient with God's promise, whether of mercy for the believers or punishment for the deniers. He was commanded to proclaim to them that the fulfillment of God's warnings was not within his control, for he was but a human being, receiving revelation and conveying it, calling people to the one God and urging them to remain upright on his path, while warning the polytheists as he had been commanded to do. The matter, in the end, rested solely with God, and he had no power over it. He was only a mortal messenger, entrusted with this divine mission. Say, I am but a human being like you, to whom it has been revealed that your God is one God. So turn to him and seek his forgiveness. Woe to those who associate others with him. Oh, the greatness of patience, perseverance, faith, and surrender. Only those who have endured even a fraction of such trials in real life can grasp the magnitude of the steadfastness required in such circumstances. Only they can appreciate the grandeur of enduring such hardship without hastening the fulfillment of divine promises to silence the arrogant, defiant deniers. Only they understand the weight of such trials and the nobility of bearing them with patience, pressing forward on the path. It is for this reason that the prophets and messengers were so often exhorted to patience. For the path of calling others to God is the path of long, arduous patience, the patience to endure rejection, delay, and the postponement of victory, even its signs. And above all, the patience to submit, accept, and be content with God's decree. The greatest response that the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, was commanded to offer in the face of arrogance and heedlessness was to recite, Woe unto those who associate partners with God, those who neither give the alms nor believe in the hereafter. The specific mention of alms, zakat, in this context must have had a relevant occasion, though one unknown to us, for this verse is from the Meccan period, whereas zakat was not made obligatory until the second year of the Hijrah in Medina. However, the concept of zakat, in its essence, was familiar in Mecca. What was instituted in Medina was the specification of its shares and its collection as a defined obligation. In Mecca, on the other hand, it remained a general act of voluntary charity, undefined in its limits and entrusted to the conscience of the believer. As for disbelief in the hereafter, it is the very essence of kufr, the rejection of truth, that merits woe and destruction. Some scholars have suggested that the term zakat here refers to faith and purification from idolatry. This interpretation is also plausible, especially in such circumstances. The prophet, as a caller to truth, would then unveil before them the hideousness of the crime they were committing through their shirk, associating partners with God, and their disbelief. He would lead them to gaze upon the vast expanse of the cosmos, the heavens and the earth and the universe, before which they are but an insignificant and feeble speck. He would guide them through this vast domain to reveal the majesty of God's sovereignty, which they deny, and how it permeates the very fabric of this universe of which they are a part. And then he would draw them out of their narrow, constricted perspective, wherein they see themselves as grand and mighty, consumed by self-regard and their envy of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him for having been chosen from among them. Their preoccupation with preserving their status and interests blinds them to the immense truth that Muhammad has brought, as revealed in the Qur'an. This truth transcends their time and place, their persons and their concerns. It is a truth that encompasses the heavens and the earth, concerns all of humanity across the ages, and pertains to the ultimate reality that transcends their limited existence, encompassing the very essence of the cosmos itself. Say, do you indeed disbelieve in him who created the earth in 2 days, and do you set up equals to him? That is the sustainer of all the worlds. And he placed firm mountains rising above it, and blessed it, and determined its sustenance within it in 4 days alike for all who ask. Then he turned to the heaven when it was but smoke, and said to it and to the earth, Come willingly or unwillingly. They said, We come willingly. So he completed them as 7 heavens in 2 days, and he revealed to each heaven its function. And we adorned the lowest heaven with lamps, and made them a means of protection. Such is the decree of the Almighty, the All-Knowing. Say to them, in your disbelief, in your reckless utterance of this great falsehood, you are committing a monstrous and despicable act. You deny him who created the earth and placed upon it mighty mountains, who blessed it and apportioned its sustenance. You deny him who created the heavens and ordered their affairs, who adorned the nearest heaven with radiant lamps and made it a place of protection. You deny him to whom the heavens and the earth have willingly submitted, while you mere inhabitants of this earth arrogantly rebel and stubbornly reject. Yet, the Quranic style presents these truths in its unique way, which penetrates the depths of the heart and shakes it to its core. Let us try to follow the sequence and detail of this magnificent exposition. Say, do you indeed disbelieve in him who created the earth in 2 days, and do you set up equals to him? That is the sustainer of all the worlds. And he placed firm mountains rising above it and blessed it and determined its sustenance within it in 4 days alike for all who ask. Here the creation of the earth in 2 days is mentioned, followed by an interjection before continuing the narrative of its development. This interjection highlights the first stage of the earth's creation. That is the sustainer of all the worlds. And you disbelieve in him and set up equals to him, even though he created the very earth upon which you dwell. What arrogance, what heedlessness, and what a vile act! But what are these 2 days in which the earth was created, and the 2 additional days in which the mountains were established, the sustenance apportioned, and the blessings bestowed, making a total of 4 days? These are, without doubt, God's days, whose measure is known only to him. They are not the days of this earth, which are but a temporal measure instituted with the earth's birth. Just as the earth has its days determined by its rotation around its axis, before the sun, so too do other planets and stars have their days, which differ from those of the earth, some shorter and some longer. The days in which the earth was created and the mountains were formed, its sustenance apportioned, and its blessings bestowed are entirely different measures of time, which we cannot fathom, though we know they are far longer than the days we experience. The closest we can imagine, based on our limited human understanding, is that these days correspond to the vast epochs through which the earth passed, stage by stage, until its crust solidified and became suitable for life as we know it. According to current scientific theories, this process spanned approximately 2 billion years of earthly time. These are merely scientific estimations derived from the study of rocks and the calculation of the Earth's age through them. In our study of the Quran, we do not resort to such estimations as definitive facts, for they are not. They remain theories subject to revision and refinement. We do not impose them upon the Quran, but rather observe whether they align with its verses without forcing interpretations. If they do, we may regard them as likely approximations, closer to truth due to their proximity to the Quranic meaning. Current scientific consensus suggests that the Earth was once a fiery ball in a gaseous state, akin to the Sun as it appears now. Most likely it was a fragment that separated from the Sun for reasons yet to be definitively agreed upon. Over vast spans of time, its surface cooled and solidified, though its core remains in a state of molten heat where even the hardest rocks are liquefied. As the Earth's crust cooled and solidified, it initially formed layers of hard rock, one atop the other. At an early stage, water was formed through the combination of hydrogen and oxygen in the ratio of 2 to 1, giving rise to the oceans. Air and water on this earth have worked together to erode the rocks, breaking them apart and carrying their fragments to be deposited elsewhere, eventually forming soil where vegetation could grow. They have also worked together to wear down mountains and highlands, filling valleys and plains. There is scarcely anything on this earth, past or present, that does not bear the marks of both destruction and renewal. This crust of the earth is in constant motion and perpetual change. The waves of the sea batter it, while the sun causes the sea's waters to evaporate, forming clouds that pour fresh water upon the earth. This water flows in torrents and rivers, carving through the crust, dissolving and transforming rock, carrying it away and reshaping it into new forms. Over centuries, millennia, and even millions of years, the face of the earth changes. Frozen ice works upon the earth as liquid water does, while the wind and the sun leave their own indelible marks. Living beings also reshape the Earth's surface, as do volcanic eruptions that emerge from its depths. Ask a geologist about the rocks of this crust, and he will enumerate for you endless types. Speaking of the three major categories into which they are classified, he speaks to you of igneous rocks, those which have emerged from the depths of the earth, molten and aflame, only to cool and solidify into stone. He gives you examples such as granite and basalt and presents to you a sample, pointing out the crystals it contains, white, red or black. And he tells you that each of these crystals signifies a distinct chemical compound, each with its own unique essence. For these rocks are mixtures, composites formed of many elements. Then he draws your attention to the fact that from these igneous rocks and their kindred, the crust of this earth was formed in the primordial ages of time, when the earth itself was completed and made whole. Thereafter, water descended upon it from the heavens, be it in the form of flowing rivers or frozen ice, and air, wind and sunlight began their transformative work. These forces together altered the rocks, changing both their nature and their chemistry, giving rise to new kinds of rocks, different from those that preceded them, to the extent that they can barely be united in form or essence, in either appearance or composition. Then the geologist takes you to the second great category of rocks, the sedimentary rocks, those which have been shaped and derived through the action of water, air, sunlight, or even by living organisms, from older and more complex rocks of the earth. They are called sedimentary because they are not found in their original locations. Rather, they have been carried away whether by water or by wind after being extracted or fragmented from their parent rocks, and have then settled, sunk, and come to rest where they now lie upon the earth. The geologist gives you an example of sedimentary rocks, limestone, of which the Mokattam Hills are composed and from which the city of Cairo builds its homes. He tells you that limestone is a chemical compound known as calcium carbonate, formed on Earth through the work of living organisms or chemical processes. He gives you another example, sand, which is composed mostly of silicon dioxide and which has also been derived in a similar manner. He points to shale and clay as further examples, all of them originating ultimately from earlier sources. You inquire about these earlier sources from which such sedimentary rocks have been derived despite their varied forms, and you learn that they are none other than the igneous rocks. For the story of Earth began when its surface, having once been molten, solidified in the unfathomable depths of time, leaving nothing upon its surface but igneous rock. Then came water and seas, and the igneous rock engaged in a profound interaction with water. Air joined this interaction, as did reactive gases, fierce winds, and the fire and light of the sun. All these forces worked together, each according to its inherent properties, to transform the unyielding, barren igneous rock into something useful. Rock that could serve for the building of shelters, and rock that could yield precious minerals. Yet more momentous than these uses, the forces of nature extracted from that hard, lifeless, igneous rock something even more wondrous, soil. Soil that was deposited upon the earth's surface, preparing it for the arrival of living creatures. Granite, in its raw state, cannot be ploughed, nor can it sustain crops or irrigation. But from granite and its kin, a soft, fragile soil emerged. And with the appearance of this soil, plant life began to spring forth. With the emergence of plant life came the animals. Thus was the earth prepared for the coming of the noblest of all creatures to walk its surface, humankind. This long journey, as modern science estimates it, may help us to grasp the meaning of the days mentioned in the creation of the earth, the setting of its mountains, the blessing of its surface, and the apportioning of its sustenance, all within 4 days, as described in the Qur'an. These days of God, however, are beyond our comprehension. We do not know their nature or length. What we do know is that they are certainly not the same as the days of this earth. And so we pause, reflecting on each verse of the Quranic text, before we leave the earth behind to contemplate the heavens. And he placed firm mountains upon it. How often does the Quran refer to mountains as firmly rooted, rawasi? In some places it explains their purpose, lest the earth sway beneath you. Thus the mountains themselves are firmly rooted, and they secure the earth, preserving its balance so that it does not sway. There was a time when people believed their earth to be fixed, immovable, and resting upon unshakable foundations. Then came an age in which they were told that their earth is but a small sphere, floating in infinite space, unsupported by anything. At first this thought may have caused fear, as if the earth might suddenly sway or fall into the abyss of space. But let them be reassured. It is the hand of God that holds the earth and the heavens, preventing their collapse. Should they ever come undone, none but He could hold them together again. Let them be reassured, for the laws governing this universe are firm, created by the Almighty, the All-Powerful. Returning to the mountains, we find the Qur'an describing them as firmly rooted and affirming that they stabilize the earth, preventing it from swaying. Perhaps, as we have noted elsewhere in these reflections, they maintain the balance between the ocean depths and the earth's heights, preserving equilibrium and preventing the earth from tilting or swaying. A scientist observes, every event that occurs on the Earth's surface or beneath it results in a transfer of matter from one place to another, which in turn affects the Earth's rotational speed. Tidal movements are not the sole factor in this. Even the water carried by rivers, the movement of winds, the sediment deposited in ocean beds, or the emergence of new land all influence the Earth's rotation. And if the Earth were to expand or contract ever so slightly by just a few feet in diameter, this too would affect its speed of rotation. Thus, this Earth, so sensitive to even the slightest changes, is it any wonder that the firm, stabilizing mountains are described in the Quran as preventing it from swaying beneath our feet? Indeed, this truth was revealed more than 14 centuries ago, and He blessed it and apportioned its sustenance. In earlier times, our ancestors would have understood this verse as referring to the crops that grow upon the land, or to the minerals hidden within the earth, gold, silver, iron, and the like. But today, after God has unveiled to humankind so many of the earth's blessings and sustenance, the meaning of this verse expands in our minds. We now understand how the elements of air combined to form water, and how air, water, sunlight and wind collaborated to produce fertile soil. We now see how water, sunlight and wind work together to create the rain, the source of all fresh water, whether invisible rivers or hidden aquifers that emerge as springs, wells and fountains. All these are foundations of blessing and sustenance. And then there is the air itself. From it we draw our breath, and in it we find the life of our bodies. This earth is a sphere encased in a crust of rock. Above the rock lies a layer of water, and above both water and rock stretches a vast layer of air, a dense gaseous ocean as profound as the seas. And we, the children of humankind, along with the animals and plants, dwell within the depths of this atmospheric ocean, finding peace and sustenance within its embrace. From the air we draw our breath, taking from its oxygen. From the same air the plants build their own bodies, drawing from its carbon, more specifically from its carbon dioxide, which the chemists call by this name. It is from this carbon oxide that the plants construct their forms, and we, in turn, eat the plants, and we eat the animals that feed on the plants. From both we build our own bodies. As for the remaining gases in the air, there is nitrogen, also called azote, which serves to temper the oxygen so that we do not burn with every breath we take. Then there is water vapour, which moistens the air, and still other gases remain in the air in small quantities, including, in no particular order, argon, helium, neon, and others. There is also hydrogen, which most likely lingers in the air as a remnant of the Earth's first creation. The materials that we consume and that benefit us in our lives and sustenance is far broader than what merely fills our stomachs, are all compounds of the original elements contained within the Earth, whether in its depths or its atmosphere. Take sugar, for instance. What is it if not a compound of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen? Water, as we know, is composed of hydrogen and oxygen, and so it is with everything we use, whether it is for food, drink, clothing or tools. All of it is but a composite of the elements deposited in this earth. All of this points to a measure of blessing and to the apportioning of sustenance within 4 days, long epochs of time that unfolded as stages in the divine creation of the universe. These are the days of God, the knowledge of whose measure is known to none but him. Then he turned to the heavens while it was still smoke, and said to it and to the earth, "Come willingly or unwillingly." They said, "We come willingly." So he ordained them as 7 heavens in 2 days, and inspired within each heaven its decree. And we adorned the nearest heaven with lamps, and made it secure. This is the decree of the Almighty, the All-Knowing. In this context, turning, istawa, signifies intent, and the intent, when it comes from God Most High, is the direction of his will. The word then, thumma, here does not necessarily indicate a chronological sequence, but rather an ascent in meaning and significance. For in our perception the heavens are loftier and more exalted. Then he turned to the heavens while it was still smoke. There is a belief that before the creation of the stars, there existed what is known as a nebula, a gaseous smoke. Indeed, the nebulae, whether luminous or dark, are composed of gas and dust, remnants of the creation of stars. The theory of creation posits that the galaxy was initially composed of gas and dust, and from the condensation of these, the stars were formed. What remained became the nebulae. And to this day there remains within this vast galaxy a significant amount of gas and dust, equivalent to what was used in the formation of the stars. The stars continue to draw this material toward themselves through their gravitational pull, sweeping the heavens clean in a process of cosmic tidying. Yet, despite the countless stars engaged in this task, they are but few when compared to the vastness of the space that remains to be cleansed, spaces of overwhelming magnitude and awe. This explanation may well be true, for it aligns closely with the Quranic truth. Then he turned to the heavens while it was still smoke, and with the idea that the creation of the heavens unfolded over a long span of time, 2 of God's days. And then we stand before the magnificent reality. He said to it and to the earth, "Come willingly or unwillingly." They said, "We come willingly." What a profound allusion this is to the submission of the universe to divine law, to the intrinsic connection between the reality of creation and its creator, a connection of obedience and surrender to his word and will. Here only man stands apart, often submitting to this law unwillingly. For man too is bound by this divine law, unable to escape its grasp. He is but a small cog in the vast wheel of existence, governed by the universal laws that encompass him, whether he accepts them or not. And yet he alone among creation seeks to resist, attempting to deviate from the smooth, effortless flow of the divine order. In doing so, he collides with the immutable laws that will inevitably overpower him, perhaps even break and crush him until he surrenders, not out of willful obedience, but out of compulsion. Only the true servants of God, those whose hearts, beings, actions, perceptions, wills, desires and aspirations align with the universal laws, submit willingly. Their submission is harmonious, flowing gently with the great cosmic wheel, moving toward their Creator alongside all of existence, in connection with every force within it. When this alignment occurs, they achieve the extraordinary and perform the miraculous, for they are in harmony with the divine law, drawing strength from its immense power. They are of it, and it encompasses them as they journey toward God in willing submission. We are compelled to submit, but oh, that we might submit willingly, that we might respond as the earth and the heavens responded with gladness and joy in meeting the essence of existence, which is surrender to the sustainer of all worlds. How often we act in ways that are almost comical, while the great wheel of destiny turns according to its own purpose, its own speed, and its own direction, carrying the entire universe along with it, guided by fixed laws. Meanwhile, we, small and insignificant, seek to hasten its pace or slow it down. We, alone among this vast procession, are driven by the restlessness of our souls, souls that stray from the great wheel, veering off course, driven by anxiety, impatience, selfishness, greed, desire and fear. And so we wander here and there, colliding with one cog or another, feeling pain, and breaking ourselves against the laws we cannot escape. The wheel continues in its motion, unyielding, while our energy and effort are wasted in vain. But when our hearts truly believe, when they truly surrender to God, and connect with the spirit of existence, then we come to understand our true role. We align our steps with the steps of destiny, moving at the right moment, at the right speed, and in the right direction. We move with the strength of all existence, drawing from the creator of existence itself. In that alignment, we accomplish great things, truly great things, without being overcome by arrogance, for we know the source of the power through which those deeds are achieved. We know with certainty that it is not our own power, but the power of the Almighty flowing through us. Oh, the joy, the happiness, the peace, and the tranquility that fill our hearts when we live this way, when we align ourselves with this obedient, responsive planet as it journeys with us on its great voyage toward its Creator, the ultimate destination of all things. Oh, the serenity that floods our souls when we dwell in a universe that becomes our friend, a universe fully surrendered to its sustainer, and we, too, surrendered alongside it. Our steps no longer stray from its path, and there is no enmity between us and the universe, for we are of it and journey with it toward the same goal. They said, "We come willingly." So he ordained them as 7 heavens in 2 days, and inspired in each heaven its decree. Perhaps these 2 days refer to the time during which the stars were formed from nebulae, or perhaps to some other phase of creation as known to God alone. The inspiration of commands within each heaven refers to the release of the natural laws governing them, guided by divine wisdom and direction. As for what exactly is meant by heaven, we cannot specify with certainty. It may refer to degrees of distance, to individual galaxies, or to the vast array of galaxies scattered across varying distances. It may also refer to something else entirely, for the word heaven encompasses many possibilities. And we adorned the nearest heaven with lamps and made it secure. The nearest heaven likewise does not have a singular fixed meaning. It could refer to the galaxy closest to us, the Milky Way, whose diameter spans 100,000 light-years. Or it could refer to something else entirely, as long as it holds the stars and luminous celestial bodies that appear to us as radiant lamps. In the name of God, the most gracious, the dispenser of grace, and as a safeguard against the devils, as is evidenced by what has been mentioned in other passages of the Qur'an. We cannot venture to say anything detailed about these devils beyond the fleeting references found in the Qur'an, so let this suffice us. Such is the decree of the Almighty, the All-Knowing. And who could encompass all this? Who could sustain the entirety of existence, govern it and maintain its intricate balance other than the Almighty, the All-Powerful, the Omnipotent? Other than the All-Knowing, who is fully aware of all sources and destinations? How then, after this grand cosmic journey, can those who deny God persist in their insolence, setting up rivals unto him? How, when the heavens and the earth declare to their sustainer, "We have come willingly in submission," and yet this small frail creature called man crawling upon the earth dares to defy God with arrogance and reckless disregard? And what then shall be the recompense for such arrogance and insolence? But if they turn away, say, "I have warned you of a thunderbolt like that which struck Ad and Thamud." When messengers came to them from before them and from behind them, saying, "Worship none but God," they replied, "If our sustainer had willed, he would have sent down angels. As for us, we reject outright whatever you have been sent with." As for Ad, they were arrogant upon the earth without right, and said, "Who is mightier than us in strength?" Did they not see that God who created them is mightier than them in strength? Yet they continued to deny our signs. So we unleashed upon them a howling, violent wind during days of ill fortune, that we might cause them to taste a humiliating punishment in the life of this world. But the punishment of the hereafter is far more humiliating, and they shall not be helped. As for Thamud, we guided them, but they preferred blindness over guidance. So the thunderbolt of disgraceful punishment seized them because of what they used to earn. But we saved those who had attained faith and were conscious of us. This dire and fearful warning, say, "I have warned you of a thunderbolt like that which struck Ad and Thamud," befits the enormity of the sin, the repulsiveness of the crime, and the arrogance of the idolaters, as recounted at the beginning of the Surah. It also underscores the stark contrast between the defiant disbelievers and the harmonious order of the vast universe presented prior to this warning. Ibn Ishaq has narrated a story related to this warning. He said, Yazid ibn Ziyad told me, on the authority of Muhammad ibn Ka'b al-Qurazi, that I have been informed that Utbah ibn Rabia, who was a leader among his people, once said while sitting in the council of Quraysh, and the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, was sitting alone in the mosque. O people of Quraysh, shall I not go to Muhammad and speak with him, offering him some proposals that he might accept so that he would desist from troubling us? This occurred after Hamza, may God be pleased with him, had embraced Islam, and the companions of the messenger of God, peace be upon him, had increased in number. They replied, Yes, O Abu al-Walid, go to him and speak. So Utbah approached the messenger of God, peace be upon him, and sat down beside him. He said, O nephew, you know your station among us, your noble lineage and your position in the tribe, yet you have brought to your people something grave. You have divided their unity, mocked their intellects, denounced their gods and religion, and disbelieved in what their forefathers believed in. Listen to me, and I will propose things to you that you might consider accepting. The messenger of God, peace be upon him, replied, Speak, O Abu al-Walid, I am listening. Utbah said, O nephew, if what you seek through this matter you have brought is wealth, we will gather our wealth and make you the richest among us. If you seek honor, we will make you our leader, so that we will not decide any matter without consulting you. If you desire kingship, we will crown you as our king. And if what comes to you is a vision that you cannot repel, we will seek for you the best physicians, and we will spend our wealth to cure you of it. For sometimes the spirit may overpower a man until it is treated. Or so he said. When Utbah had finished, and the messenger of God, peace be upon him, had listened to him patiently, he said, Have you finished, O Abu al-Walid? Utbah replied, Yes. The messenger of God, peace be upon him, said, Then listen to me. Utbah said, I will. The messenger of God, peace be upon him, began to recite, In the name of God, the most gracious, the dispenser of grace, Hamim, a revelation from the most gracious, the dispenser of grace, a book whose messages have been made clear, an Arabic Qur'an for people who understand, bearing glad tidings and warnings, yet most of them turn away, and so they do not hear. The messenger of God, peace be upon him, continued reciting until he reached the verse of prostration, whereupon he prostrated. Then he turned to Utbah and said, You have heard what you have heard, O Abu al-Walid. Now it is up to you. Utbah returned to his companions, and they noticed that his demeanor had changed. Some of them said to one another, By God, Abu al-Walid has returned to you with a face unlike the one with which he left. When he sat down, they asked him, What news do you bring, O Abu al-Walid? He replied, I have heard words the like of which I have never heard before. By God, it is neither poetry nor sorcery nor divination. O people of Quraysh, listen to me, leave this man to his mission. By God, his words will have a great consequence. If the Arabs overpower him, then others will have dealt with him for you. But if he prevails over the Arabs, then his dominion will be your dominion, his honor your honor, and you will be the most fortunate of people by him. They said, By God, he has bewitched you with his tongue, O Abu al-Walid. He replied, This is my opinion. Do as you see fit. Al-Baghawi narrates in his commentary, through his chain of transmission, a hadith from Muhammad ibn Fudail, from Al-Ajla, who has some weakness, as Ibn Kathir noted, from Ziyad ibn Haritha, from Jabir ibn Abdullah, may God be pleased with him, regarding the verse. But if they turn away, say, I have warned you of a thunderbolt like that which struck Ad and Thamud. It is reported that Utbah covered his mouth and pleaded with the Prophet through kinship ties to stop. He then returned to his people and refrained from meeting Quraysh. When they questioned him, he said, I covered his mouth and pleaded with him out of fear that punishment might descend upon you, for you well know that Muhammad does not lie. I feared that his warning might come true. This is but one account of how this warning, uttered by the lips of the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, struck the heart of a man who did not believe. Let us not leave this narrative without pausing briefly to reflect upon the character of the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, the noble spirit, the serene heart, and the gracious patience with which he listened to Utbah's trivial thoughts. Though his heart was preoccupied with matters of far greater importance, he received Utbah's words with calm forbearance, dignified composure, and gentle kindness. He did not interrupt him or hasten to dismiss him, but allowed him to finish, then asked, "Have you finished, O Abu al-Walid?" When Utbah affirmed, he responded with serene confidence, "Then listen to me." And when the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, recited the words of his sustainer, he did so with unwavering certainty, deep tranquility, and a heart overflowing with faith. In the name of God, the most gracious, the dispenser of grace, Hamim. Indeed, this is an image that inspires awe, engenders trust, and evokes profound respect, a testimony to why the hearts of those who came to mock or challenge him would so often find themselves captivated by his presence and his message. May blessings and peace be upon the Prophet Muhammad, and verily, God has spoken the truth. Indeed, God knows best where to place his message. And now, after this brief pause, we return to the noble Quranic text. But if they turn away, then say, "I have warned you of a thunderbolt like the thunderbolt that struck Ad and Thamud." It is a journey through the demise of bygone nations, following a journey through the dominion of the heavens and the earth. A journey that shakes the hearts of the arrogant by confronting them with the ruin of the insolent. When the messengers came to them, from before them and behind them, saying, "Do not worship anyone but God." This is the singular message brought by all the messengers upon which the edifice of every faith has been erected. They said, "If our sustainer had willed, he would have sent down angels. Truly we disbelieve in what you have been sent with." And so it is, the recurring doubt with which every messenger has been met. Yet no messenger sent to humankind was anything other than human, a being who knew them and was known by them, a being they could take as a tangible example, one who suffered as they suffered. But Ad and Thamud declared their disbelief in their messengers simply because they were human and not angels, as they had whimsically demanded. Here, the fate of Ad and Thamud is summarized in a single unified destiny. Both were seized by the thunderbolt. Then, the tale of each is unfolded in more detail. As for Ad, they were arrogant upon the earth without right and said, "Who is mightier than us in strength?" But the truth is that humans, as servants of God, must humble themselves before him and not act with arrogance upon the earth. For what are they in comparison to the grandeur of God's creation? All arrogance on earth is baseless and without right. Yet they were deluded by their pride and boastfully asked, "Who is mightier than us in strength?" It is the false sense of power that tyrants often feel, the delusion that no force can stand against their strength. And in their hubris, they forget. Did they not see that God, who created them, is mightier than them in strength? This is an elementary truth. He who created them in the first place is without doubt stronger than they. For it is he who endowed them with their limited measure of strength. But the tyrants do not remember, and they rejected our signs with willful denial. And while they were caught up in their arrogance, showing off their strength and boasting about their might, the next scene unfolds a fitting end to their grotesque pride. So we sent upon them a screaming wind during days of misfortune, to make them taste the punishment of disgrace in worldly life. It was a wild, raging, icy wind that swept them away in days of ill fortune. And it was a humiliation in this world, a humiliation befitting the arrogant, those who strutted boastfully before others. This was their fate in the world, but their story does not end here. And the punishment of the hereafter is even more humiliating, and they will not be helped. As for Thamud, God had guided them, but they preferred blindness over guidance. And as for Thamud, we guided them, but they preferred blindness over guidance. This seems to allude to their brief moment of belief after the miraculous sign of the she-camel, followed by their apostasy and disbelief afterwards. They chose blindness over guidance, and such waywardness after the truth is the most severe form of blindness. So the thunderbolt of humiliating punishment seized them for what they used to earn, and humiliation was the most fitting end for them, For it was not merely punishment or death, it was also disgrace, a recompense for their turning away from the light after they had seen it. And we saved those who believed and were God-fearing. Thus ends the recounting of the fate of Ad and Thamud, a dread-inducing warning of their terrifying and fearful end. It lays bare the dominion of God, a dominion that no power can resist, no fortress can shield against, and no insolent tyrant can escape. Now, having revealed to them the majesty of God's dominion over the fabric of the universe and his sovereignty over the course of human history, the Qur'an unveils his authority over their very selves, selves over which they hold no ultimate power, selves that will testify against them in the great moment of judgment. Even their hearing, their sight, and their very skins will obey God and bear witness against them. And the day the enemies of God are gathered to the fire, they will be driven in rows. Until when they reach it, their hearing and their sight and their skins will testify against them for what they used to do. And they will say to their skins, "Why have you testified against us?" They will say, "We were made to speak by God, who has made everything speak, and he created you the first time, and to him you are returned." And you did not cover yourselves, lest your hearing or your sight or your skins should testify against you, but you assumed that God does not know much of what you do, and that was your assumption which you assumed about your sustainer. It has brought you to ruin, and you have become among the losers. So even if they are patient, the fire will be their abode, and if they ask to appease God, they will not be of those who are allowed to appease. It is the overwhelming shock of that dire moment, the manifestation of God's absolute authority that compels even their own limbs to submit to his will. They are branded as the enemies of God. And what is the fate of the enemies of God? They are herded together, first and last, old and young like a flock, driven toward the fire. When they stand before it, and as the reckoning commences, witnesses arise against them, witnesses they never anticipated. Their tongues, once so eloquent in falsehood and mockery, are now silent. Their hearing, their sight, and even their skins, once their own, now rise against them in obedience to their Creator, bearing testimony to deeds they thought were hidden. How could they have thought to conceal their intentions and crimes from God? Did they not realize that their own ears, eyes, and skins were with them all along? How could they hide from their own selves? And now these very limbs that were once their own betray their secrets, exposing what they believe to be hidden from all creation and from the sustainer of all that exists. And they will say to their skins, "Why have you testified against us?" And the skins will respond with truth, free of equivocation or apology. God, who makes all things speak, has made us speak. He created you the first time, and to him you will return. Is he not the one who gave speech to tongues? Is he not capable of causing other parts to speak as well? Indeed, he has made all things declare his truth, and today all things speak, clarifying and bearing witness. And you did not cover yourselves, lest your hearing or your sight or your skins should testify against you. It never crossed their minds that their own limbs would rise against them. They could not even imagine hiding from themselves if they had tried. But you assumed that God does not know much of what you do. This ignorant, sinful assumption deceived them, and it led them to their ruin. And that was your assumption which you assumed about your sustainer. It has brought you to ruin, and you have become among the losers. And so the final verdict comes. So even if they are patient, the fire will be their abode. What mockery of patience is this? For now, patience is endurance in the fire itself. It is not the patience that brings relief or reward. It is the patience of despair, the patience of torment without reprieve. And if they ask to appease God, they will not be of those who are allowed to appease. The time for atonement is past. There is no more reconciliation, no more forgiveness to be sought. For when one seeks appeasement, it is with the hope of pardon and favour. But today the door is shut, not only to mercy, but even to the possibility of appeal. And thus he unveils to them the dominion of God over their hearts, even as they walk the earth in arrogance, refusing to believe in him. For God having seen the corruption within their hearts, has decreed for them vile companions from among both the jinn and humankind, who adorn for them falsehood and evil, leading them to join the ranks of those upon whom the decree of loss has been passed, and upon whom the word of punishment has been made binding. And we assigned to them companions who made pleasing to them what was before them and what was behind them. And the word has come into effect upon them, joining them with nations that had passed on before them of jinn and mankind. Indeed, they were all losers. Let them reflect, then, on how they are within the grasp of God, against whom they arrogantly refuse to humble themselves in devotion, and how their very hearts, those hearts nestled within their chests, are leading them to torment and ruin, as God has decreed for them companions who whisper to them incessantly, beautifying every evil around them, and making their deeds appear fair and alluring, blinding them to their inherent ugliness. And truly, the gravest affliction that can befall a human being is to lose the sense of the vileness of their own actions, to perceive only goodness in themselves and their deeds. For this is the path of destruction, the downward slope that inevitably leads to utter ruin. And so they find themselves in the company of evil, a herd of the damned, among the nations who had already met their fate before them, from both jinn and humankind. A herd of losers, for indeed they were losers, and among the adornments of their vile companions is their incitement to wage war against this Qur'an, for they felt its overwhelming power. And those who disbelieve say, "Do not listen to this Qur'an, and speak noisily during its recitation so that you may overcome." This was the word of advice that the leaders of Quraysh would impart to one another, urging the masses to follow their lead, for they were helpless before the effect of the Qur'an upon their own hearts and upon the hearts of the people. "Do not listen to this Qur'an," they would say, for as they claimed, it bewitched them, overpowered their minds, corrupted their way of life, and caused division between father and son, husband and wife. Indeed, the Qur'an would divide, but it was the division ordained by God, the separation between faith and disbelief, between guidance and error. It would claim hearts for itself, severing them from all other ties except the bond with their Creator. It was, in truth, the criterion. "And speak noisily during it so that you may overcome." This was nothing more than futile clamour, unworthy of consideration. Yet such was their inability to confront the Qur'an with reason and evidence that they resorted to such childish antics. Their arrogance in rejecting faith left them no recourse except this baseless uproar. They would distract from the Qur'an with tales of Rustam and Isfandiar, as Malik ibn al-Nadr would do, seeking to divert the people. They would drown it out with shouting and uproar, with rhymes and chants. But all of this faded into insignificance, carried away like chaff before the wind, for the Qur'an prevailed. It carried within it the secret of victory. It was the truth, and truth will always prevail, no matter how hard falsehood may strive. In response to their vile claim, the Qur'an delivers a fitting warning. "But we will surely cause those who disbelieve to taste a severe punishment, and we will surely recompense them for the worst of what they used to do. That is the recompense of the enemies of God the fire. For them therein is the home of eternity as recompense for what they used to reject of our signs. And soon thereafter we find them in the fire. Soon do we witness the fury of the deceived, those whose companions had adorned for them what lay before them and behind them, luring them to this destruction that has now become their final abode. And those who disbelieve will say, 'Our Sustainer, show us those who misled us of the jinn and mankind, so we may place them under our feet, that they may be among the lowest.' It is a fierce rage, a burning desire for vengeance. 'Place them under our feet,' they cry, 'that they may be among the lowest.' And this comes after all the bonds of friendship, all the whispers of temptation, and all the adornments of sin that had once tied them together. Such is their connection, the connection of whispering and seduction. But there is another bond, a nobler bond, the bond of counsel and loyalty. These are the believers, those who said, 'Our Sustainer is God,' and then walked the straight path of faith and righteous action. God does not decree for them vile companions from the jinn or humankind. Rather, he assigns to them angels who pour tranquility and peace into their hearts, who give them glad tidings of paradise, and who remain their allies in both this life and the hereafter. Indeed, those who have said, "Our sustainer is God," and then remain steadfast upon them, the angels will descend, saying, "Do not fear and do not grieve, but receive good tidings of paradise which you were promised. We are your allies in this worldly life and in the hereafter, and you will have therein whatever your souls desire, and you will have therein whatever you request as accommodation from the one who is forgiving, merciful." Steadfastness upon the statement, "Our sustainer is God," means to uphold it in its truth and essence. It is to carry it within the depths of one's conscience and reflect it in one's actions. It is to remain steadfast upon it, bearing its burdens and fulfilling its obligations. And surely this is a great and arduous task, one that merits the abundant favour of God, the companionship of angels, their loyalty, their affection, as conveyed in God's words when they say to their believing companions, "Do not fear, do not grieve, receive glad tidings of the paradise which you were promised. We are your allies in this worldly life and in the hereafter." And then they paint for them a picture of the paradise they are promised, as though a dear friend were describing to his companion the joys he knows will delight him. "You will have therein whatever your souls desire, and you will have therein whatever you request." And they add to its beauty and honour, as accommodation from the one who is forgiving, merciful. This is paradise, bestowed upon them by God's forgiveness and mercy. What bliss could surpass this sublime bliss? This passage concludes with the portrayal of the one who calls others to God, his spirit, his words, his demeanour and his conduct. It addresses the messenger, peace be upon him, and every caller to God from his community. The surah had begun with a description of the harshness and insolence of those being invited, their rudeness and defiance. Now it sets forth the methodology for the caller, regardless of the circumstances. And who is better in speech than one who invites to God and does righteousness and says, "Indeed, I am of the Muslims." And not equal are the good deed and the bad. Repel evil by that which is better, and thereupon the one whom between you and him was enmity will become as though he was a devoted friend. But none is granted it except those who are patient, and none is granted it except one having a great portion of good. And if there comes to you from Satan an evil suggestion, then seek refuge in God. Indeed, he is the hearing, the knowing. To undertake the duty of calling to God in the face of human waywardness, ignorance, pride in inherited traditions, and resistance to being told they were on the wrong path is no easy task. It is a weighty responsibility, yet an exalted one. And who is better in speech than one who invites to God and does righteousness and says, "Indeed, I am of the Muslims"? The word of invitation to God is the most beautiful word that can be spoken on earth. It ascends to the heavens, leading the procession of all good words, provided it is accompanied by righteous action that affirms it, and by submission to God that effaces the self. Thus, the call becomes purely for God, and the caller has no role in it other than to convey the message. The caller need not concern himself with whether his words are met with rejection, insolence, or defiance. He advances with goodness, standing on the higher ground, while others confront him with evil from a lower place, and not equal are the good deed and the bad. He is not to respond to evil with evil, for goodness and its impact can never be equated with evil and its consequences. Patience, forgiveness, and rising above the urge to retaliate against wrong can calm even the most obstinate hearts, transforming enmity into friendship and hostility into gentleness. Repel evil by that which is better, and thereupon the one whom between you and him was enmity will become as though he was a devoted friend. This principle holds true in the vast majority of cases. Rage turns to serenity, anger to calm, and arrogance to humility in response to a kind word, a gentle tone, and a warm smile directed at a furious, defiant, and unrestrained soul. If met with similar actions, one becomes even more agitated and enraged, boasting and throwing aside all modesty. He relinquishes his restraint entirely, allowing himself to be swept away by the arrogance of wrongdoing. Yet such forbearance requires a great heart, one that is compassionate and forgiving, even when it has the power to retaliate. This capacity is essential for forbearance to bear its fruit, lest the act of kindness be perceived by the wrongdoer as weakness. Should he sense it as weakness, he will not respect it, and the good deed will carry no weight whatsoever. This forbearance is also limited to instances of personal offence. It does not extend to assaults on faith or the temptation of believers away from it. In such matters, one must resist and confront with all available means or patiently endure until God decrees what is destined to happen. This level of repelling evil with goodness, the forbearance that transcends waves of anger and rage, and the equilibrium that discerns when to be forgiving and when to act against wrongdoing, is a noble degree that not everyone attains. It demands patience and is a gracious gift bestowed by God upon his servants who strive and thus earn it. Only those who are patient may attain it, and only those of great fortune can achieve it. This is such a high station that even the messenger of God, may blessings and peace be upon him, who never became angry for himself, when angered for God's sake, no one could withstand his wrath. It was said to him, as it is to every caller to faith in his person, "If an incitement from Satan should provoke you, seek refuge with God. Indeed, he is all-hearing, all-knowing. For anger may incite, and it can disrupt one's patience in the face of offence, or narrow the heart against forbearance. Seeking refuge in God from the accursed Satan at such moments serves as protection, preventing him from exploiting one's anger and slipping through the cracks of the heart. The Creator of this human heart knows its entrances and pathways, its capacities and predispositions, and from where Satan may enter. He shields the heart of the caller to God from the provocations of anger or the incitements of Satan, which may arise in the path of the patient. This is a difficult path, navigating the byways of the soul, its thorns and its valleys, until the caller reaches the point of guidance and control. And among his signs are the night and the day, the sun and the moon. Do not prostrate to the sun or the moon, rather prostrate to God, who created them, if it is him that you worship. And if they turn away, then those who are with your sustainer glorify him by night and by day, and they do not grow weary. And among his signs is that you see the earth subdued. But when we send down water upon it, it stirs and swells. Indeed, he who gives it life is the giver of life to the dead. Indeed, he is all-powerful over all things. Indeed, those who disbelieve in our signs will not be concealed from us. Is he who will be thrown into the fire better, or he who comes secure on the day of resurrection? Do whatever you will. Indeed, he is all-seeing of what you do. Indeed, those who disbelieve in the reminder when it comes to them, and indeed it is a mighty book, falsehood cannot approach it from before it or from behind it. It is a revelation from a wise and praiseworthy one. What is said to you except what has been said to the messengers before you? Indeed, your sustainer is the sustainer of forgiveness and the sustainer of painful retribution. And if we had made it a foreign Qur'an, they would have said, "Why have its verses not been detailed? A foreigner and an Arab say it is guidance and healing for those who believe, and for those who do not believe, in their ears is deafness, and it is upon them blindness. Those are called from a distant place. And we had certainly given Moses the book, but they differed therein. And if not for a word that proceeded from your sustainer, it would have been judged between them, and indeed they are in doubt about it. Whoever does good, it is for himself, and whoever does evil, it is against it. And your sustainer is not unjust to the servants. To him will be returned the knowledge of the hour, and not a fruit emerges from its sheath, nor does a female conceive or give birth, except by his knowledge. And the day he will call them, 'Where are my partners?' They will say, 'We have declared to you that none of us bears witness.' And they will be lost from them, and they will assume they have no escape. Man is never weary of supplication for good, but if evil touches him, he is despairing and hopeless. And if we let him taste mercy from us after an adversity has touched him, he will surely say, 'This is due to me, and I do not think the hour will occur.' And if I am returned to my sustainer, indeed for me there will be the best. And we will surely inform those who disbelieved of what they did, and we will surely let them taste a severe punishment. And when we bestow favour upon man, he turns away and withdraws to the side. but when evil touches him, he is full of lengthy supplication. Say, have you considered if it is from God and you disbelieve in it? Who is more astray than one who is in profound schism? We will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth. Is it not sufficient concerning your sustainer that he is over all things, witnessing? Indeed, they are in doubt about the meeting with their sustainer. Indeed, he encompasses all things. Qur'an 41, 37, 54. This is a new chapter with the human heart in the realm of faith and invitation. It begins with a tour through the cosmic signs of God, the night and the day, the sun and the moon. Among the polytheists were those who worship the sun and the moon alongside God, even though they are but creations of God. The discourse follows these signs with a reminder: if they arrogantly reject the worship of God, there are those who are nearer to him who do worship him. Then the earth as a whole is presented in a posture of worship, as it receives life from its sustainer just as they have received it, but they do not turn this life toward God. Instead, they deviate from the cosmic signs of God and dispute his revealed verses, though it is an Arabic Qur'an untainted by foreignness. From here, the discourse transitions to a scene from the day of resurrection, portraying humanity exposed, laid bare with all its frailty, its inconsistency, its forgetfulness, its greed for good, and its panic in the face of harm. Yet they cannot shield themselves from the evil that may afflict them before God. The surah concludes with God's promise to unveil his signs in the horizons and in themselves until it becomes clear to them that this is the truth, removing from their hearts all doubt and uncertainty. And among his signs are the night and the day and the sun and the moon. Do not prostrate yourselves to the sun or to the moon, but prostrate yourselves to God, who created them, if it is truly him that you worship. These signs are displayed for all eyes to see, the learned and the unlearned alike. They possess a direct and immediate awe within the human heart, even if one knows nothing of their scientific reality. Between these signs and the human being lies a connection that runs deeper than scientific knowledge, a connection rooted in origin, in instinct, and in composition. For humanity is of the same essence as these signs. Its being mirrors theirs, its material is their material, its instinct is their instinct, its laws are their laws, and its creator is their creator. Thus the human being instinctively receives these signs with a profound awareness, a trembling of the heart, and a direct understanding of their ancient message. For this reason, the Quran often suffices with directing the heart towards these signs, awakening it from its heedlessness. This heedlessness may stem at times from the long familiarity with these signs, and at others from the barriers and distractions that accumulate upon the heart. The Quran clears away this veil, reviving the heart anew, alive, alert and responsive to the companionship of this friendly universe, engaging with it in an ancient, deeply rooted harmony. One manifestation of deviation lies in the practice which the verse here addresses. There were people who, in their exaggerated awe for the sun and the moon, turned to them in erroneous and misguided worship, seeking closeness to God by venerating what they perceived as the most magnificent of his creations. The Quran came to correct this deviation, to remove the obscurity from their corrupted belief. It says to them, if you truly worship God, then do not prostrate to the sun or the moon. Prostrate to God, who created them. For it is the Creator alone to whom all created beings must turn. Like you, the sun and the moon turn toward their Creator. Therefore turn with them to the one Creator who alone is worthy of your worship. The Quran refers to the sun and the moon using a feminine plural pronoun in created them, kulkun, taking into account their category along with their companions among the stars and heavenly bodies. It speaks of them with a feminine pronoun that suggests life and intellect, portraying them as beings with consciousness and essence. If, even after these signs are presented and this truth is made clear, they remain arrogant, this neither adds nor subtracts anything. It changes nothing, for others worship without arrogance. But if they grow arrogant, those who are near to your sustainer glorify him by night and day, and they do not grow weary. The heart instinctively recalls the angels when hearing the words, "those who are near to your sustainer," though perhaps there are others among God's chosen servants whom we know nothing about. For do we possess any knowledge but the smallest fragment? These, those near to your sustainer, are higher and nobler. They are more honoured and exemplary. They do not display the arrogance of the misguided ones on earth, nor are they deluded by their proximity to God. They never falter in glorifying him by night and by day, and they do not grow weary. What difference does it make then, if some among the people of the earth fail to fulfill the truth of servitude to God, when all others, the heavens and the earth, the angels and the devout, submit to him in worship? And there is the earth, their mother, who nourishes them, the earth from which they emerged and to which they will return, the earth upon whose surface they crawl like ants, with no food or drink except what it provides. This earth stands in reverence before God as it receives life from his hands. And among his signs is that you see the earth humbled. But when we send down water upon it, it stirs and swells. Verily he who gives it life is indeed the giver of life to the dead, for surely he has power over all things. We pause for a moment to marvel at the precision of Quranic expression in every instance. The earth's humility here refers to its stillness before the rain descends upon it. But when we send down water, it stirs and swells, as if in an act of gratitude and prayer for the gift of life. This depiction is particularly fitting within the context of awe, worship and glorification, as the earth is portrayed here as a participant in the scene, sharing in the appropriate emotions and movements of this grand tableau. Let us borrow here a passage from the artistic imagery in the Qur'an, which highlights the artistic harmony in such expressions. The Qur'an speaks of the earth before the rain and before its blossoming with vegetation, sometimes as lifeless, HMDI, and at other times as humble. Some may think this is merely variation in expression, but let us examine the contexts in which these images occur. The term lifeless appears in this context. O humankind, if you are in doubt about resurrection, consider that we created you from dust, then from a drop of fluid, then from a clinging substance, then from a lump, formed and unformed, so that we might make our power clear to you. And we cause to remain in the wombs whatever we will for an appointed term, then we bring you forth as infants, and then allow you to grow to maturity. And among you are those who die early, and among you are those who are brought back to the most abject state of life, so that they know nothing after having had knowledge. And you see the earth lifeless. But when we send down water upon it, it stirs and swells and brings forth every kind of lovely growth. Meanwhile, humbled occurs in this context, and among his signs are the night and the day, and the sun and the moon. Do not prostrate to the sun or the moon, but prostrate to God, who created them, if it is truly him that you worship. But if they grow arrogant, those who are near to your sustainer glorify him by night and day, and they do not grow weary. And among his signs is that you see the earth humbled, but when we send down water upon it, it stirs and swells. Upon quick reflection, the harmony between lifeless and humbled becomes evident. The context of lifeless is one of resurrection, revival and emergence, perfectly aligned with the image of the earth as lifeless, then stirring, swelling and bringing forth every kind of lovely growth. Meanwhile, the context of humbled is one of worship, reverence and submission, fittingly aligned with the image of the earth as humbled, then stirred to life as all creation moves in glorification. Moreover, in the latter context, the description stops at stirring and swelling, without mentioning growth and emergence, as it is not the focus here. The purpose was to imagine the earth's movement after its humility, as this movement is central to the scene of worship. Every element in the tableau is in motion, glorifying and prostrating, and it would not be appropriate for the earth alone to remain still. It stirs to join the worshippers in their movement, ensuring no part of the scene is static while all else moves. This is a level of artistic precision in imagined harmony that surpasses all estimation. And so it is. Let us return to the Quranic text, where we find that the conclusion of the verse points to the resurrection of the dead, using the revival of the earth as a model and proof. Verily, The one who gives it life is indeed the giver of life to the dead. Truly, he has power over all things. Again and again the Quran presents this scene, using it as an example of resurrection in the hereafter and as evidence of divine power. The spectacle of life emerging upon the earth strikes close to every heart, for it touches the soul even before it reaches the intellect. Life pulsing forth from lifelessness whispers of the creative power in a subtle suggestion that stirs the depths of human feeling. The Quran speaks to the innate disposition of humanity in its own language, taking the most direct path to the heart. In the presence of such cosmic signs, which evoke such profound emotional resonance, comes the denunciation and warning against those who deny or distort these manifest and dazzling signs. They disbelieve in them or argue against their truth. Verily, those who distort our signs are not hidden from us. Is the one who will be cast into the fire better, or the one who will come secure on the day of resurrection? Do as you will. Indeed, he sees well all that you do. The warning begins veiled yet fearsome. Are not hidden from us, for they are fully exposed to God's knowledge. They will be held accountable for their distortions no matter how much they twist and deny, imagining they can escape God's grasp as they might elude human reckoning with clever deceptions. Then comes the explicit threat. Is the one who will be cast into the fire better, or the one who will come secure on the day of resurrection? This is an allusion to their fate, being flung into the fire, filled with terror and dread, in stark contrast to the believers who will arrive in peace and security. The verse concludes with yet another veiled threat. Do as you will. Indeed, he sees well all that you do. What a frightful prospect for one left to their own devices, persisting in their denial of God's signs under the watchful eye of the all-seeing. The discourse then shifts to those who reject the Quranic signs, this Quran, a book that is noble, unassailable, and impervious to falsehood from any direction. Indeed, those who disbelieve in the reminder when it comes to them, it is indeed a mighty book. Falsehood cannot approach it from before it or from behind it. It is a revelation from one who is wise, praiseworthy. Nothing is said to you except what was said to the messengers before you. Indeed, your sustainer is the possessor of forgiveness and the possessor of painful punishment. The text speaks of those who disbelieve in the reminder upon its arrival without explicitly stating who they are or what will befall them. The statement, those who disbelieve in the reminder, remains incomplete, as though to say that their act of disbelief is so monstrous that no description could adequately capture its enormity. Thus, the text leaves the predicate unstated and moves instead to describe the reminder they disbelieved in, amplifying the gravity and ugliness of their deed. It is indeed a mighty book. Falsehood cannot approach it from before it or from behind it. It is a revelation from one who is wise, praiseworthy. How could falsehood ever penetrate this book, when it proceeds from God, the ultimate truth, declaring the truth and connected to the truth upon which the heavens and the earth are founded? How could falsehood ever approach it when it is mighty, safeguarded by the command of God, who has pledged to protect it? Verily, we have sent down the reminder, and indeed we are its guardian. One who reflects deeply upon this Quran finds within it the truth with which it was sent down, and the truth it came to establish. One perceives this truth in its spirit, and in its words a truth that is simple and accessible, a natural certainty that speaks to the depths of human nature, imprinting itself upon it and leaving a wondrous effect. It is a revelation from one who is wise, praiseworthy. Wisdom is evident in its structure, in its guidance, in the manner of its gradual revelation, and in the way it addresses the human heart through the shortest path. And the one who revealed it is truly worthy of all praise, and in the Quran are countless reasons to inspire the heart to praise him abundantly. The discourse then ties the Quran to all the revelations that came before it, and connects the messenger of God, may peace and blessings be upon him, to all the messengers who preceded him. It gathers the family of prophethood into a single assembly, receiving a unified message from their sustainer, binding their souls and hearts together, uniting their paths and their calls. This allows the last believer to feel like a branch of a vast tree with deep roots, a member of an ancient and noble family. Nothing is said to you except what was said to the messengers before you. Indeed, your sustainer is the possessor of forgiveness and the possessor of painful punishment. It is one revelation, one message, one faith. It is also one response from humanity, the same denial, the same objections. And yet it remains one bond, one tree, one family, one shared pain, one shared experience, and in the end, one shared goal, connected by a single, continuous path. What sense of intimacy, strength, patience, and determination does this truth inspire in the hearts of those who carry this call, walking a path once trodden by Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, and all their brethren? Peace and blessings be upon them all? What sense of honor, pride, and steadfastness does it instill in one who knows that their predecessors on this path were the chosen elite of all humankind? This is the reality embodied in the words, "Nothing is said to you except what was said to the messengers before you." Yet what profound and far-reaching effects result from the establishment of this truth in the hearts of the believers? This is the work of the Qur'an as it affirms such a grand truth and plants it firmly within the soul. Among what was said to the messengers and to Muhammad, the seal of the messengers was, "Indeed, your sustainer is the possessor of forgiveness and the possessor of painful punishment." This is to balance the soul of the believer, allowing it to remain upright and centered. It inspires hope in God's mercy and forgiveness, so one never despairs of it. At the same time, it instills fear of God's punishment, so one never forgets it. This balance is the hallmark of Islam's intrinsic nature. The text then reminds them of God's favor in making this Quran in their own Arabic tongue, while also pointing to their obstinacy, denial, and contentiousness. And if we had made it a non-Arabic Quran, they would have said, why were its verses not explained in detail? Is it a non-Arabic recitation and an Arab messenger? Say, it is for those who believe a guidance and a healing, but those who do not believe in their ears is deafness, and it is upon them a blindness. Those are being called from a distant place. They refuse to hearken to it in Arabic, and they fear it precisely because it is Arabic, addressing the innate disposition of the Arabs in their own tongue. Thus they say, do not listen to this Quran and speak noisily during its recitation so that you may prevail. Had God made it a non-Arabic Quran, they would have objected as well, saying, why was it not Arabic, clear, eloquent and precise? And if some of it were Arabic and some non-Arabic, they would still have objected, saying, is it a non-Arabic recitation and an Arab messenger? Such is their contentiousness, denial and obstinacy. The truth that emerges from this debate about form is that this book is guidance for the believers and a healing. It is the hearts of the believers that perceive its nature and reality, and so they are guided by it and find in it their cure. But as for those who do not believe, their hearts are veiled and untouched by the light of this book. It becomes a heaviness in their ears and blindness in their hearts, and they comprehend nothing. For they are far removed from the essence of this book and its call. Say, for those who believe, it is guidance and a healing, but as for those who do not believe, there is deafness in their ears, and upon them is blindness. They are as if being called from a distant place. One finds the truth of this statement in every age and in every environment. There are those in whose hearts this Quran takes root, nurturing them anew, giving them life, and enabling them to achieve greatness within themselves and in their surroundings. And there are those for whom this Quran is a burden upon their ears and hearts, increasing them only in deafness and blindness. The Quran itself does not change, but the hearts do. And so the word of God is ever true. The text then turns to Moses and his book and the disputes of his people regarding it. It points to him as an example of the messengers who were mentioned before in broad terms. God Almighty deferred his judgment over their disagreements, for his decree had already been issued that the final decision would be made on the day of the great judgment. And indeed we gave Moses the book, but it was disputed over, and had it not been for a word that had proceeded from your sustainer, it would have been judged between them. But verily they are in grave doubt concerning it. Likewise, the decree of your sustainer has proceeded that the judgment over the final message will be deferred until that promised day. allowing people to act freely, to then be held accountable for their deeds. Whoever does good, it is for his own soul, and whoever does evil, it is against it. And your sustainer is never unjust to his servants. This message has come to proclaim the maturity of humanity and to place upon its shoulders the burden of choice, announcing the principle of individual responsibility. Let whoever wills make their choice, for your sustainer is never unjust to his servants. And in connection with the mention of the appointed term and the affirmation of God's justice in it, the text declares that the knowledge of the hour belongs solely to God. It paints a profound image of God's encompassing knowledge, touching the depths of the heart as it moves toward depicting a scene from the day of resurrection wherein the polytheist will be questioned and will answer. Unto him is referred the knowledge of the hour, and no fruit emerges from its sheath, nor does any female conceive or give birth except with his knowledge. And on the day when he will call unto them, Where are my partners? They will say, We declare to you that none of us bears witness to that, and that which they once invoked will vanish from them, and they will realize that there is no escape for them. The hour is a mystery veiled in the depths of the unknown. The fruits concealed in their sheaths, the burdens carried in the wombs, all are unseen secrets, yet all of them are encompassed by God's infinite knowledge. The heart roams, pursuing the fruits hidden in countless sheaths and imagining the unnumbered embryos in the wombs of creation. And so, within the human conscience, there arises an image of God's encompassing knowledge, as far as the human mind can comprehend of this boundless reality. And then, the lost flock of humanity is envisioned standing before this all-encompassing knowledge, which leaves no secret unexposed, no hidden thing unperceived. On the day when he will call unto them, Where are my partners? On that day, when no argument will avail, no distortion of words, no evasion will be of use, what will they say? They will say, We declare to you that none of us bears witness to that. They will confess, We acknowledge now that none of us today testifies that you have a partner. And that which they used to invoke before will vanish from them, and they will realize that they have no escape. Thus, they will no longer remember their previous claims. It will dawn upon them that there is no way out of their predicament. This is the mark of overwhelming anguish, which causes a person to forget their entire past, remembering only what lies before them in that moment. That is the day for which they took no precaution nor prepared themselves, despite humanity's intense desire for gain and its dread of harm. And here their souls are depicted as stripped of all coverings, exposed without any veil, bereft of all pretense. Man never wearies of praying for good, but if harm touches him, he is despairing and hopeless. Yet if we let him taste mercy from us after adversity has touched him, he will surely say, This is my due, and I do not think the hour will ever come. But if I am indeed returned to my sustainer, then surely I will have the best with him. But we shall certainly inform those who disbelieve of what they did, and we shall make them taste a severe punishment. And when we bestow favour upon man, he turns away and distances himself. But when harm touches him, he is full of lengthy supplication. This is an accurate and truthful depiction of the human soul that does not follow the guidance of God, a depiction that reveals its fickleness, weakness, arrogance, greed for good, ingratitude for blessings, delusion in times of ease, and despair in times of hardship. A portrait so precise and wondrous. This human being does not tire of pleading for good, persisting in asking for it, seeking it for himself without weariness. Yet if harm so much as touches him, he loses all hope and confidence, imagining there is no way out, that all ties are severed, and despair fills his heart. He loses hope in God's mercy and forgets his care, all because his trust in his sustainer is weak and his connection to him is frail. And when God lets him taste some of his mercy after adversity, the blessing carries him away. He forgets to be thankful, intoxicated by ease, oblivious to its true source. He declares, This is mine, I have attained it through my own merit, and it shall remain with me forever. He denies the hereafter and deems it far-fetched. I do not think the hour will ever come. And in his self-importance, he presumes upon God, imagining himself to hold a status with him that he does not deserve, even as he denies the hereafter and disbelieves in God. Yet he claims, "But if I am indeed returned to my sustainer, then surely I will have the best with him." Such arrogance, and thus the warning comes in its rightful place for this delusion. But we shall certainly inform those who disbelieve of what they did, and we shall make them taste a severe punishment. This human being, when God bestows his bounty upon him, becomes arrogant and insolent, turning away and distancing himself. But when harm touches him, he collapses and diminishes, pleading persistently without end. Such is the precision in capturing every nuance of the human soul, every minor and major detail. It is the Creator who describes his creation, the one who knows the paths of the human soul, and how it continues to wander along its winding courses until it is guided to the straight path and thereby finds stability. And before this soul, stripped of all coverings, exposed and unadorned, the question is posed, what will you do then if this Qur'an you deny is indeed from God, and if this warning is true and you have placed yourselves in the path of the consequences of denial and discord? Say, have you considered if it is from God and you disbelieve in it, who is more astray than one who is in prolonged opposition? It is a possibility worthy of consideration. What precautions have they taken in the face of such a reality? And so they're left to reflect and to calculate while the text turns to the vast cosmos, uncovering some of the signs ordained within it and within their own selves as evidence of the truth. We shall show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth. Is it not enough that your sustainer is witness over all things? Behold, they are in doubt about the meeting with their sustainer. Behold, he encompasses all things. This is the final cadence, majestic and profound. It is the promise of God to mankind, the children of Adam, to reveal to them some of the mysteries of this cosmos and of their own souls. He has promised to show them signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that this is indeed the truth. This religion, this book, this way of life, this word, and who is more truthful in speech than God? And indeed, God fulfilled his promise to them, unveiling his signs to them in the horizons throughout the 14 centuries that followed this pledge, and revealing his signs within their own selves. And he continues with each passing day to reveal to them new wonders. Mankind looks and sees that humanity has uncovered a great many truths since that time. The horizons have been opened to them, as have the mysteries of the human soul, to the extent that God has willed. They have come to know many things, things which, had they understood how they came to know them, and given thanks, would have brought them great blessings. They came to know, since that time, that their earth, once thought to be the centre of the universe, is but a small speck, a mere particle orbiting the sun. And they came to know that the sun itself is but a small sphere among hundreds of millions scattered across the vast expanse of the cosmos. They learned the nature of their earth and their sun, and perhaps even something of the nature of the universe, if indeed what they have learned proves true. They have uncovered much regarding the substance of this universe in which they dwell, if it can even be said to have a substance. They have learned that the very foundation of this universe is the atom, and they have discovered that the atom can be transformed into energy. Thus, they have come to know that the entire universe is but energy in its myriad forms, taking on the shapes and dimensions that we perceive. They have also learned much about their small planet, Earth. They have come to know that it is a sphere, or like a sphere. They have come to understand that it rotates upon its own axis and orbits the sun. They have mapped its continents, its oceans and its rivers. They have uncovered some of the secrets hidden within its depths and discovered many of the provisions concealed within its core, as well as those scattered throughout its atmosphere. They have come to understand the unity of the laws that govern their planet and connect it to the greater cosmos, and they have discerned the forces that direct this vast universe. Among them, there are those who have been guided, ascending from their understanding of the laws to an awareness of the creator of those laws. Yet others have gone astray, remaining confined to the outward appearance of knowledge, unable to move beyond it. But humanity, after having wandered and strayed due to their newfound sciences, has begun to return through the very path of knowledge to the realization that this is indeed the truth. And the conquests of science and knowledge within the depths of the human soul have been no less significant than their discoveries regarding the physical universe. They have come to know much about the human body, its structure, its properties and its mysteries. They have learned about its formation, its composition, its functions, its ailments, its nourishment, and the processes that sustain it. They have uncovered marvels in its workings and movements, miracles that could be fashioned only by God. They have also learned something of the human soul, though their understanding of it remains far less than their knowledge of the body. This is because their attention has been directed so intensely toward the material aspect of man and the mechanics of his body, leaving little focus for his mind and spirit. Yet even so, they have uncovered truths that hint at further conquests yet to come. And humanity remains on this path, ever advancing. God's promise remains ever true. We shall show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth. The latter part of this promise has already begun to manifest with striking clarity since the dawn of this century. The caravan of faith is gathering from all directions, and many are arriving by way of material science alone. From the farthest corners of the earth, multitudes are converging. This is happening despite the overwhelming wave of atheism that once seemed poised to engulf this planet in the past. Yet now this wave is receding despite all outward appearances to the contrary. And it may well be, God willing, that before this 20th century comes to an end, this wave will have nearly vanished, and thus God's promise shall come to pass, as it must. Is it not enough that your sustainer is witness over all things? For he is the one who gave his promise with full knowledge and awareness. Behold, they are in doubt about the meeting with their sustainer, and thus they act as they do, driven by this doubt regarding their encounter with him, an encounter that is certain. Behold, he encompasses all things. So where could they flee from his encounter when he encompasses all things?